process simpler. So we'll say that foobar was a string, and the standard way that you would set this up is you'd say it's a string, and we return foobar, and then we need something to set it, so we say set foobar, and then a string and new foobar, and then we need to retain it, and then we release the old one, and then oops, no, not food, foobar, and there we go. So I mean, and then if you need to do this again, so if you have baz, then you say okay, we've got baz, and return baz, and oops, I forgot my semicolon, and set baz, and then ns string new baz, and you can see that I'm making constant typos as I'm doing this. It's really silly and annoying, and I mean, now I'm correcting them as I'm going along because I've typed and retyped and retyped this whole setup 100 times. But yeah, but there's still frequently. I mean, I'll just miss something. I mean, maybe I did type BZZ there, for example. Okay, and then maybe I missed that, and then I need to wait until I compile the code, and then it throws an error, and then I have to wait, and it's just silly. It's just wasting time for no good reason. So instead, we can have TextBucket automate all of this for us. So what I'll do here is I'll say, okay, well we had attributes foobar and baz. So I'll go down here and I'll just type foobar, and I'll highlight it. I'll bring TextBucket back up, and there's nothing useful for these purposes on this tab, but for the tutorial purpose, I set up on tab A, so I'll jump over to tab A. In slot 0 there, I've got something called accessor from selection. So I'll hit that. And that actually gives me a prompt because it wants to know the type of the object. And this snippet is set up so that it defaults to ID. But we know that it's an NS string in this case. So I'll type in NS string and then hit go, and then well, it's tabbed over because of a text edit and it's tabbing, but it created the attributes for us. It's the same thing. It returns foobar and sets foobar to new foobar, and then assigns it, and then we can create our baz attribute really quick and say, okay, that's also an NS string, and then go, and we're done. So I mean, there's no additional time for me to constantly retype the thing. There's no risk of error because it's already saved and stored in the snippet for me. So it's always going to be the same thing every single time. And again, TextBucket's designed to just pop up, give you what you want, and vanish again, because you don't really care about like hunting for snippets or how cool my interface is or how great TextBucket is. You just want something to show up and give you your thing and get out of your way, and that's what it's going to do for you. So let's see a couple of additional things. Oh, okay. I'll actually show you the content of this slot because this is a slightly more advanced one. Now again, I can right click on it and choose edit this slot. Although you can also hover over it, and that'll show you that the contents. If you want to just pull out the actual value with any of the macros, you can drag and drop that anywhere. Now, as you can see, this included some macros for us. It has the type that we were prompted for, and it's got an equal sign which says, okay, by default make it an ID. If nothing's provided, then use ID, and then otherwise the user can override it. We've got another macro here called selection. This one specifically just looks at the contents of the selected text, and if you didn't select anything, it would prompt you for it. And the whole thing here is run as a Perl script. But back here, so if I can right click on it and choose edit, but there are other ways to do it because I really hate using the mouse. Again, if I'm in the middle of typing, I want to be able to pop something up, get the text I want, and get back to typing. I don't want to have to take my hands off the keyboard and use the mouse. So if I need to change something, if I need to pause and right click on it, that just won't do. Well, we have other buttons over here. We have the plus, which will edit the slot, and the minus, which will delete the slot if we decide that we don't want it. But those can also be accessed by just hitting plus or minus. So in this case, I'll hit plus, and the window changes to yellow to warn you that you're now in edit mode. It tells you please select a slot to edit, and I can just press 0, and that pops the whole thing up for me. Now this one is a little bit more complicated. You can see that it's executing as a Perl script, and the reason for that is because the selection, foobar in this case, we need to capitalize the letter F, and TextBucket can't do that on its own, but we can pass out to something that can here. So in Perl, it's UC first to get the first letter, and it attaches set and new, and then sets it up and so on. But again, if you'd rather use something else, you can. I mean, we have Perl and Python and Ruby and AppleScript, but you can set up anything else you want. So it gives you an extreme amount of power in terms of what these snippets are going to be. It's not just static content that you're putting in there. You can also prompt yourself for values and display those, and then and then if that's not enough, you can shell out to another script and do a whole lot of processing for yourself, and then get that back into place. So you can really customize what you're typing in there with relatively little typing. You can just type in a couple of words, and then press a key press to bring up text bucket, and then press a letter and a number, and you're done. Potentially saving a huge amount of typing. It's pretty exciting, I think. I'll just go over a couple of more things quick, and then we can wrap it up, and hopefully you'll go off and be excited and start using it yourself. So the buttons along the bottom here, we've got I already showed you edit and delete. The question mark brings up the help. The preferences bring up the wrench brings up the preferences. I'll come back to that. The pin here is kind of fun. What that'll do is it'll pin text bucket on the screen for you. Normally when you switch to a different app, it vanishes, but here you can see I can go over to text edit and start typing something new here. But text bucket has stayed on the screen. That's because I pinned it open there. That can be useful sometimes. If you're doing a lot of stuff, copying lots of things in and out, or not really sure what you're using, you can leave it open for yourself. But otherwise, it'll stay out of the way. The preferences has a couple of useful options. Again, you can change the launch combination. And again, by default, Command Option Control B, but you can change it to whatever you'd like. You can change how the macros are set up. One of the macros that I didn't cover here is the clipboard macro, which the selection here will put in whatever the selected text is. The clipboard macro will put whatever is currently on the clipboard. You can also have slot-to-slot macros. So, for example, you could insert the contents of slot A0 whenever you invoke slot A1. And then you can set up the macro start and end. And then just a couple of general things for you. You can show the window at startup and the welcome window, and you can turn on and off the status item if you don't want it. I'd recommend setting it to launch automatically at startup, because if text bucket's not running, you can't use it. And then automatically hide when inactive is just another way to get at that pin. You can provide labels for things. So I'll actually create one here. I'll say tutorial label. And then I'll make it purple text on a light blue background. So I'll be able to see the labels I created here. And you can go over to scripts and add or delete anything you want. So if you're a Tcl programmer, you can say, okay, I've installed Tcl on my system, and that's where I want to use it. Save this, and then here I'll show a couple of additional options. Here we'll go over to tab T for tutorial, and then I'll enter edit mode for T0 and say this is slot T0. Nothing really exciting. But then I'll edit slot 1 and say here is another slot's contents, and I can say S and then T0. And incidentally, here, if you went to execute, you can see that we now have execute as a Tcl script, although I'm not going to do that anymore. And I can also say, here's your selection, and here's what's on the clipboard. And I'll call it a sample slot, and then I'll also label it. I'll give it the tutorial label. So you can see it shows up in the hideously ugly colors I set of purple on light blue, and I'll add the label to that. And then I'll go back over here and say, okay, I'll delete all of this and say, okay, this is on the clipboard. So I'll select all and copy it and say, this is something selected. So I'll select all of that, paste, bring up text bucket. I'll hit slot 1, and then here we go. So just by hitting slot 1 there, I said, okay, here's another slot's contents. This is T0, and then here is your this is something selected, and here's what's on the clipboard. So you can combine these things together in lots of powerful ways. If it makes more sense that you need to process something on the clipboard, do that. Or if you need to process the selection, do that. Or if you need to look at another slot, and you can combine things together and execute scripts on it, and you can plug and play all of these things back and forth to get exactly what you need to do. And to bring it up again, all you need to do is hit one hotkey, one letter, one number, type in values that you need, and you're done. And then you can get back to work. And that's the power of TextBucket. I hope this has helped explain things to you. If you're still having trouble or questions, please look at the help, and then obviously also email us anytime. You can contact us at www.bassettsoftware.com. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you enjoy TextBucket. Thank you.